Hello, my name is Audrey Cross, and I am a leader and an organizer for social change. I am also a person with narcolepsy and cataplexy. I am a gardener. I am a tap dancer and a percussionist. I am a feminist and an activist. And temporarily, I'm also an undergraduate student. I don't know about you, but I love food. I love growing food and cooking food, sharing food, having food shared with me, eating food, and apparently dressing like food. I also love what food does, because food does not exist in isolation. Food connects. Food connects human systems like culture and government, economics, and identity, and even a sense of home, to biological systems and chemical systems and physical systems. And food also connects people to people, because food doesn't come from the grocery store, I'm sorry to tell you. It comes from the earth and from people who work on all sorts of diverse operations, whether they are growing vegetables or making bread that I have sitting on that table from the farmer's market, or if it's something that comes from miles and miles away. And each time you eat, you are connected to those people. You are part of the food system, because food exists in a system. And producers and consumers, communities, and the earth are brought together into what I view as a food system. And I'm not alone. I'm part of a movement that has collaboratively identified what kind of a food future we need to sustain ourselves and our planet and each other. This is the Real Food Challenge, and this visual is the Real Food Wheel. As you can see, there are producers, consumers, communities, and the earth, all in one picture. And what the Real Food Challenge seeks to do is bring all of this together, and not just look at the impact on climate or the impact on health and access to food for the consumer side, not just focus on farmers. You can look at this visual in a number of ways, and what I love about it is that each time someone looks at it and I talk to them, people see different things, which is really exciting. One way to look at this is all the pieces of the pie. These are all the parts that make up the whole that is the food system. Another way of looking at it is to think about this as different angles. So that in the middle is a food system that truly nourishes. And it's going to look different from the food access angle, which means access to healthy, affordable, culturally appropriate food. Then it's going to look from the farm worker perspective or for the climate perspective. These are all perspectives that are valid, that we need in our dialogues. And another way of looking at it is that this is the table, the metaphorical table we all want to be at to have our voices heard. And you need all these people sitting around the table in order to make meaningful change. This can help you identify who isn't at the table. And you look around and you say, wow, we have no producers at this table. This is an important part of the food system. We need them to join us. And another way of describing it is that a wheel needs all its spokes to make a revolution. This is a quote from Aneem Steele, one of the co-founders of the Real Food Challenge. And this speaks to this visual, what kind of a change we need for the future, what a revolution could look like in our food system. And real food comes from two definitions. Something that's real is something that is true. And food is something that nourishes, or at least should nourish. And combining these two definitions, you have a truly nourishing food system, what does it mean to truly nourish producers? Not just thinking of our own bodies and what we are eating, but truly nourish communities and truly nourish the earth, a food system that instead of degrading the earth, helps with its own health. As producing food, we are producing well-being for all parts of the food system. So I have been working as part of a national movement of students that are working collaboratively with other parts of the food wheel. What's novel about the Real Food Challenge, I see, is that instead of organizing for a part of the food wheel, just focusing on one side of it, we are trying to recognize that food exists in systems, and to change the food system for positive, just and sustainable food systems in the future, we need to organize for systems, not just for parts. So this national movement seeks real food, which is defined as practically as local food, food that is certified humane, fair, and/or ecologically sound. These are the foods that we think will help make the future brighter and more collaborative and truly nourishing. There's a document that collaboratively has been developed by student leaders and employees of the Real Food Challenge organization to have colleges and universities commit to real food. Because every year, colleges and universities across the country spend $5 billion total for food. And if we could shift 20% of that, that's $1 billion. I cannot fathom how many dollars that is. That is a lot of dollars. And if $1 billion could go towards a truly nourishing food system, that's a really impressive start. So we seek to shift 20% of college food budgets towards these real food sources. And that's on a national level, but also on a campus level. So for each campus, the goal of procuring at least 20% real food by the year 2020. The Real Food Campus Commitment also engages transparency and tracking. There is a student-designed and exclusively student-run tool called the Real Food Calculator that tracks where food is coming from, researching every single item to figure out where on earth it came from. And dining directors rarely can't tell you that. They can tell you the company, maybe. But it takes more research to figure out where that was grown. And it takes a lot of research. So students across the country have been running this tool and tracking their school's real food percentage. The Real Food Campus Commitment also is committed to engagement, having a food systems working group that is like that real food wheel as a table, having all the people around it, and making sure to account for the turnover of students, having 50% of the working group be students. So students' voices are always heard and don't rely on students graduating, and then there goes student voice. And lastly, it commits to education of the campus community about food systems and what that means and how they can play a role in the food system. This is Real Food Challenge at the University of Maine. It is real food for you, being the university, and me for the state of Maine, but also just for you and me, because everyone in this room, cares at least a little bit about the University of Maine for showing up here. So thank you. As you can see, we have students tabling in vegetable costumes. We like the fruit and vegetable costumes. And we have on that sidewalk, it says Real Food for UMaine with the hashtag YUMS, your UMaine system. And then there's students who spoke at the Board of Trustees meeting in January. We had 3 students speak at the Board of Trustees meeting and many more attend. Some had to skip class because the schedules did not align, and to make a difference, we needed students present. And they made the personal choice to do that because this is important. There's also students from the group working for fossil fuel divestment, and we coordinated with them. So we all had orange patches for divestment on our shirts, and we all held orange carrots for real food from a local organic farm that is run by a University of Maine alum. And here we delivered Valentine's to President Hunter, and she chose the basket for real food for Mainers. And then we made it to the front page. But it's not just on our campus. Over 70 colleges across the country have committed to real food. Many, many more, including the University of Maine, are still campaigning to get this commitment in writing. This is a regional strategy retreat at Bard College in New York. This is a bunch of happy, real food students learning about how they can make a difference in the world. This is a parade on Earth Day at the University of Maine at Presque Isle. There's also vegetable costumes. This is a trend, apparently. This is at the University of Oklahoma, where they made their own real food wheel that they presented at a forum and explained to all in attendance. And here's the campus commitment being signed at the University of Oklahoma. The California State University system has 23 campuses, and they collaborated between a bunch of these campuses to speak at the Board of Trustees meeting, and they committed to 20% local and sustainable foods as a result. So the 23 campuses of the CSU system, as well as the 10 campuses of the University of California system, all have policy in place because of students who have organized to try to make a difference in food policy at their schools. These are students from the University of South Carolina making Valentines for their campus president. Creative actions like this bring together all parts of what we do love about the food system with what we want to see change so we can love it even more. At the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is a rally where they had puzzle pieces as all these pieces fit together. And there was one piece missing. At the University of Vermont, students organized to be engaged in the food procurement process on the contracts level. There was an open forum that students had feedback forms. And this is Michael Pollan, the food writer that many of you may be familiar with, holding a sign saying that he eats real food with a Real Food Challenge logo. And these students work so hard, not just to track real food and engage people in the conversation, but to make the conversations become reality. And there was language in their contract that wouldn't have been there for local and sustainable foods and transparency that is in great part due to these students and collaborators that have made a real difference. And more recently, many of these are recent pictures, some a year old or so. This is at Ohio State University, where a bunch of students, eager to make change, are trying to reclaim Ohio State University and democratically be heard in the process of making their university run. So they have a sign that says, "Let's be undisputed real food champs." I like it. But it's also collaborative. So in addition to being champs, a bunch of those people are my friends that I've met through Real Food Challenge. And we're building this network across the United States and into Canada now, and even beyond that, of people that really care and are eager to make a difference. And this network is really powerful. Food systems themselves are powerful, complex, and vital. We need food systems in order to live, because if you're all alive, which most of you seem to be, that requires eating. So, in addition to collaborating, we're also making meaningful change. Students across the country and beyond are mobilizing and organizing because we have no ground to lose in the fight for real food and for a truly nourishing food system that benefits us all. Producers, consumers, communities, and the earth all have no ground to lose in defining our food system today so that together we may define tomorrow. Thank you.